Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will today present the annual State of Judiciary report. That's for 2021-2022 for that financial year. The report is expected to reflect on the performance of the judiciary and its spending. For more on this, we're joined this morning by retired Judge Dennis Davis. Davis joined us via our video link this morning. Judge Davis, if you can still hear us, welcome to the program. Can you hear us? All right, apologies for that. We seem to have lost our connection there momentarily to Judge Dennis Davis. We want to unpack with him his reflections on what we can expect today when the Chief Justice presents the annual State of Judiciary report. That's for the 2021-22 financial year. All right, it seems we have him back on the line. Judge Davis, great to have you here with us. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. The judiciary, in a context like South Africa, really seen as the last guard of our constitutional democracy. What are some of the important points you're hoping to hear from the Chief Justice today?
Well, I'm not sure that the Chief Justice in a situation like this, well, let me go back. I mean, this is a sort of, this day started some years ago, and the Chief Justice Mogoeng, and generally then constituted a report of the progress of the judiciary in its various guises. In other words, the delivery system, how many cases were being done where, how quickly cases were being disposed of, the efficiency of the judiciary, its accessibility to the public. But I agree with you. I would have thought that the Chief Justice, given the fact that this is Judiciary Day, would in fact try to, if it were, elucidate on some key points, namely, you know, the role of the judiciary in South Africa, its centrality to constitutional democracy, and thereby, even if indirectly, try to address some of the criticism which has been unfairly directed at the judiciary.
So you're saying it will really just be exactly what it says, a report on the financial year for 2021-22, unlikely that it'll go into those issues?
Sorry about the financial reports. Sorry interrupting you.
Yeah.
It's always a terrible mechanism. What I was going to say was I think it will be more than that. It's always been more than that. You know, the Chief Justice tries to explain what the judiciary does, how its various components are functioning. I suspect he'll probably address some of the difficulties that the judiciary has infrastructurally. Although I retired at the end of 2020, I still have continued doing some judicial work until the end of last year. And you have to, and one of the things I'm sure he would raise, which is my experience, is just how poorly the judiciary is resourced in terms of its infrastructure, its computers, its courts, etc. You will have noticed, for example, that Judge Sutherland, the Deputy Chief Justice in Gauteng not that long ago, complained bitterly that the absence of any backup system meant that they couldn't run courts properly in Gauteng. And I would hope that the Chief Justice would alert to that. It's becoming a very difficult situation, that you cannot have in-hearing courts because you can't record evidence, and you can't record evidence because, say, you don't have enough electricity and there's no backup plan.
Wow. Yeah, that's difficult to understand. Judge Davis, shall we then, given what you've said, we will likely hear from the Chief Justice today, shall we take the discussion back to just the basics of where we are at insofar as the judiciary is? So it's independent, it's subject only to the Constitution and to the law. Now, having said that, we're a country made up of majority young people, right? So those of us who are under 40, perhaps there is maybe a lack of understanding, and maybe this is unfair to those young people who are very well versed, but perhaps there is a shortage of understanding, shall we say, of how hard fought our Constitution really is in our country of majority young people, would you say?
You made a fabulous point. I mean, it's such an important point. I don't think it's only young people, by the way.
Yeah.
But okay. The point is the future of South Africa is in your hands, as it were, as opposed to those of us who, in a sense, lived through the horrors of apartheid and tried to struggle for a democratic country. You're quite right. We had a comparator between how awful an authoritarian regime is, which doesn't really have strong judicial review powers as compared to what we have today. And I think we failed quite badly in educating the public in relation to the Constitution, its implications, and its rights. If you ask American school kids, now the American Constitution is under terrible trouble, so let me make that point because of all sort of authoritarian tendencies. But at least many of their kids get educated in what their Constitution tells them and what it's about. We have failed. I think we've failed at our schools and our universities and the media to basically inculcate into people an understanding of how important these rights are, and stuff that we take totally for granted now, which could be taken away at a whim, become very important. It's very interesting, for example, just to look at what is going on in Israel at present, and not exactly a perfect democracy by any stretch, but at least it had a judicial system which, without a Bill of Rights, did quite reasonable work. And now, under very right-wing authoritarian government, they want to replace that by making Parliament the ultimate arbiter. Now, if you get to that system, in other words, where the judiciary doesn't actually have any power to set aside egregious legislation or executive action, you're in serious trouble. And I agree with you. I don't think we've educated people enough, which is why you get nonsense spoken about, you know, the fact the Constitution is some kind of Anglo-American project imposed upon us. Whereas if you look at, for example, Andre Odendahl's magisterial book, which should be compulsory reading for all, about the struggle for the Constitution through the ANC at the time, one realizes just how hard fought this was and how critical it is if we're going to have the kind of discussion that you and I are having now.
Yeah, absolutely. Our memories tend to dim as time goes by. Judge Dennis Davis, it's such a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this discussion, but thanks for joining us this morning on the AN Report.
Take care.
Judge Davis alluding to this now, that there are many democracies that are constitutional democracies around the world that are under attack, just like many would say South Africa's constitutional democracy has been. But of course, that's very little comfort. But